Wow, thank you so much. Gee, you talk about inspiration. Camille and then Kona, thank you so much. Thank you. And we're getting settled in here for a really good panel discussion. So if you want to stand up and stretch a little bit, this might be a really good time to do so. Thank you. Wow. And again, boy, thank you to our keynote speaker. This is, inspirational and exactly what we need to be hearing and thinking about. And also Camille, good heavens, you really teed us up beautifully for thinking in terms of some of the, complexities and the urgency, really, of why we're here. So thank you so much. So again, everybody stretch, and we'll go ahead and get started here with our introductions. And again, this is going to be an interactive session. So I will be introducing our speakers here in just a moment, and then at the end, we'll have time for you all to ask questions and join in the dialogue. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. And again, let me just echo what the other speakers have said so far, and thank you to our sponsors, without whom we would not actually be here. Obviously, Mayor President's Office, Healthy BR, and all the summit sponsors that are listed here in our program. And again, the summit would simply not be possible without their support. So again, we want to make the announcement too that continuing ed credit is available, so don't forget that. Planners, landscape architects, lead professionals may all receive continuing education credit. So please take advantage of that opportunity and see the continuing ed table that is in the lobby for more information. So again, just as a brief introduction, my name is Margaret Reams, and I'm a professor of environmental sciences at Louisiana State University in the College of Coast and Environment. And I'm also the associate director for LSU's recently formed Institute for Energy Innovation. And I'm a political scientist by training, so I've done a lot of work with community engagement work over the course of my 30 some odd years at LSU. And again, seeing many friends and students. So thank you again for Camille for inviting me to join you today. So what can I say about this panel? We're just honored to have these folks here with us. First and foremost, we have Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome. And she really needs no introduction, but Mayor Broome is the first woman to be elected as Mayor President of the City of Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish, the first woman. And not only that, she was the first woman to serve as both Speaker Pro Tem and President Pro Tem of the Louisiana House of Representatives and the Louisiana Senate. And Mayor Broome has been recognized for her service and leadership by many, many organizations. For example, she was selected for the inaugural class of the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative not long ago. So congratulations, and again, thank you for joining us. Next, we have a wonderful figure in our community, Reverend Raymond A. Jetson of the Wisdom and Longevity Catalyst organization, and also the co-lead of a fabulous organization, Metamorphosis. And as we know, Reverend Jetson is one half of the intergenerational co-leadership team at the Metamorphosis organization. And his role there is they together are curating innovative asset-based, community-centered change models that seek to transform particularly inner-city neighborhoods through racial, social, and economic equity. And again, we are just delighted to have him here. He's emerged as a leading voice on community change strategies, social innovation, especially at the intersection of age and race in America. And again, really authentic community engagement is what he has built his career on. Then we're turning our attention to a wonderful visitor who has made his home now in Louisiana, Jason Neville, Executive Director of Friends of Lafitte Greenway. And by way of Los Angeles, wonderful career there. Jason is an urban planner and neighborhood revitalization professional who has been leading the Friends of Lafitte Greenway since January 2023. Prior to this role, as I alluded to, he served as Senior Project Manager on Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti's innovation team and worked as a project manager with both the New Orleans and Los Angeles redevelopment agencies. In these positions, Jason spearheaded various initiatives, including the development of affordable housing, stormwater management, infrastructure projects, arts-driven community events, and small business support programs. So welcome. And last and certainly not least, we have Taylor Lott Litt, and she's the founder and senior advisor at Higher Lit. And Tyler is a committed social impact strategist and leadership advisor, and she's dedicated to cultivating sustainable leaders, fostering strategic problem solving, and mobilizing resources for broader societal impact. Tyler is deeply, deeply committed to shaping policies and practices that facilitate equitable access and community-driven investments within this social impact sector. So let's have a round of applause for our wonderful honored guest. Okay. And with that, we are going to turn rather informal, and I'm going to have a seat and introduce some questions, and then we're just going to have sort of a round-robin discussion of various topics. And then at the end of our discussion, you'll have plenty of time to raise your hand. We'll call on you and bring a mic, and you can enter into this dialogue. So thank you again. Okay, can everybody hear us? Good. Okay, and I believe we are all mic'd up here at each of the seats, so this should be rather straightforward. So first of all, I want to thank you again to our speaker. This was inspirational, and also to Camille for her important framing of why we're all here today. And first, I would like to ask a question that is at the heart of all planning exercises, and that is, by definition, this is a proactive endeavor, where we're trying to get out in front of various problems. We are dealing in a multifaceted, complex arena of economics, of past injustices, of poverty, of exposure to pollution, all kinds of complicating factors. So my first question is, how have you, in your work, had some sort of effectiveness, I guess is the best word, in trying to get people to understand and visualize what is at stake in terms of protecting land? Because it's hard to envision, it's hard to look into the future. Some of this may seem rather abstract to people, and then we add into it the competing economic interest. So how do you communicate really what is at stake?
Want to start with me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Such a great question. The word that comes to me always immediately in this conversation is economics, right? Show me the money. And so many of us as landscape architects, urban planners, designers, we talk a lot about money with our clients. You know, we get on the economic side of the conversation. Yes, we care about the environment. Yes, we care about people. But for whatever reason, money drives the conversation. I even took it upon myself to dive into a certificate for commercial real estate development, because it's like I need to speak the language that these developers and as well as my wonderful folks in the municipalities we work with are talking about. And it keeps coming back to the economics, so we can understand the return on investment, understand why it's important to secure this land, why it's important to save the land, and then they start to get it.
I would say that one of the things that we do, a couple of the things that we do for our clients, which would be the citizens of the community in various areas, is to spend intentional time, he mentioned conversations, in community engagement and education. I believe that many communities that we interact with, especially communities of disinvestment, understand the value of land. So those conversations aren't difficult conversations. They want to be involved, they want to be engaged, and so organizations like CPEX and other organizations in our community are part of that education process. They're part of that community engagement process. But I have found that many of our citizens already have the heart. They already have the value in their heart. They want someone to assist in how do we maximize these experiences that involve our communities, our land, our geography that is part of our community.
I think a critical first step, a required first step, is acknowledging the disconnect between what we say we value and what actually is. Camille wonderfully asked this critical question of what do we value? And we espouse a lot of things in response to that, but fundamentally what we see being lived out in the world around us is just dramatically different than what we say really matters to us. And so I think a necessary beginning is acknowledging the disconnect between what we allege to value and what actually is practiced as our values. The second thing, and Kona lifted up, is this whole notion of valuing diversity and cultures. So very often we prescribe what is culturally important, and we assert superiority to certain cultural practices and beliefs at the demise of other cultures that are equally rich and vibrant. And so in the work that we seek to advance at Metromorphosis, a critical part of that is pointing out that there are rich cultural traditions and realities that exist in inner city communities that have been overlooked, that have been neglected, that have been disinvested in, and we can't allow that to continue to happen while at the same time saying that we value all of the citizens in our community.
I think the establishment of the Lafitte Greenway in 2015 is an example of the community identifying value and making it happen. So let me just quickly ask, how many people have been to the Lafitte Greenway in New Orleans? I see many hands, that's cool. Just very briefly, after Katrina, there was a consensus began developing among folks around the Greenway, which at the time was an abandoned railway, overgrown with grass, tore up, to create a linear park, a 3-mile linear park connecting the French Quarter to Mid-City. And the short of it is in 2015 it got built. It was very bare bones. We're friends of Lafitte Greenway. We've been building it out over time with things like stormwater management, native reforestation, public fitness programs, live theatrical and musical performances, public art. And so I would just plant a flag in the Greenway, and this is credit to our ancestors who got it going, because I was not a part of the team that got it going in the first place. But establishing that the Lafitte Greenway as a public space out of the ruins of a rail line is an example of consensus to make a place-based, landscape-driven intervention in the heart of the city that is now creating all kinds of value, whether it's civic value, ecological value, cultural value. There's also a lot of real estate value, and I can touch on what we're doing to address some of the important questions about development without displacement.
When I think about young professionals, the work that I've done or the work that I do within the community, I think about the fact that we want to be able to have a voice. We want to be able to bring in our lived experiences and also honor what has already existed in the community. And so to Mayor Broom's point, I think most people know that the land is important. Most people value the land. They look at the different landmarks as, oh, this is where I went to high school. This is where my grandmother's home is. And they see the inherent value in that. And I think it's just all about the reconciliation and bringing the multiple stakeholders together to see that we all want the same thing, but we all have to get to shared values and not just espouse values for one or for the people who are the loudest in the room, but even those at the margins.
Thank you. That, I think, is a wonderful beginning point to delve into the next question, which has to do with voices that traditionally were either excluded or somehow completely overlooked. And strategies and approaches, successes that you have experienced in your work to bring those less represented voices to the table.
We had an amazing experience in the Bahamas. And what we found very, very quickly, because of necessity, the power went out, right? Power went out, and we couldn't do great PowerPoints and all this stuff. We had all this technology, and we had to go low tech. And we were really nervous about it. We're like, oh, no, we don't have our stuff. But we went old school. We went low tech. We went door to door and talked to people about the community. That was so successful. I don't know why we don't do this more often, but we went door to door, sat in folks' living room, and just had a cup of tea and talked about life, and we uncovered so much. And then I was able to get set up in a location where I could draw by hand, and people just kept coming in during their day and talking to me about what I was drawing, and they became empowered to direct the design. I even handed pen to many people, and I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, this. And I was like, absolutely. I was like, why? He's like, because it floods there. I didn't know that. My map told me it didn't flood, but they're like, it floods. It's like, great. So going to the people, going to the community. Don't sit on the ivory tower and step back and say you're the expert. Go to them and be a part of their community.
I would say that the top-down approach is not effective for community development. That if you are going to see a community rise above its current standards, what exists, that you have to have the community involved in that process. And we have known that early on. So for example, when we're talking about initiatives like developing grocery stores in communities, when we're talking about initiatives like transit, revitalizing a main thoroughfare like Plank Road, developing that. When we're talking about projects like the Lincoln Theater in South Baton Rouge, none of those projects have evolved with a top-down approach. It's always been spaces that have been curated for the community to have their voice in what they want to see. We've specifically had different meetings where we call them community connections. And so we offer the community an opportunity to speak up, to give their views in terms of what they would like to see in terms of development. We have a number of entities. For example, when I think about developing our bike paths, we have a committee of citizens that are involved in sharing what they believe bike paths in Baton Rouge should look like. So we've been very intentional once again, and you'll hear me say that word a lot. These things just don't happen because we think about them or, we just happenstance. We have to be intentional about engaging the community and making sure that we create a seat at the table for everyone.
I want to lift up especially this notion of voices that are often not heard and have been marginalized, and say that simply because I'm in the room doesn't mean I'm in the mix. And simply because I'm present doesn't mean that I am actually participating in what it is that is happening. And so as we create these opportunities for diverse conversations, it's important that we are attentive to notions of power constructs and other things that are present. We also have to create ways for people to believe that their voices are actually going to be heard, because people have been talked at and asked to say things that people say thank you very much and go ahead and do what they were planning to do in the first place anyway. And so in many instances, people don't believe that their voices are actually being heard. And we have to create ways for people's input to be gained in different ways. I want to highlight my co-lead at Metromorphosis, Sharita Harrison, who is here, has led the organization in going to community events across the community and asking people to respond to questions in very different ways, by pouring sand in jars that are your answers, by hitting a croquet ball through a yes or no answer, or to do other things that are allowing people to express their voices in ways that are non-threatening and in very often fun ways, and you are able to learn from people. But you also have to be very intentional. Another one of my colleagues at Metromorphosis, Letitia King, is in the back, is leading our work in part of the South Baton Rouge community. And one of the work groups that she has curated is the community voice. And we've gone door to door, not once, but twice, and ask people what's important to you in that work. And so being intentional and recognizing that you can't just simply say, come in the room and tell me what you think and tell me what you really want, but to create constructs that truly allow people's voices to be heard in non-threatening ways is a critical act that it has to be taken.
We have a commitment at Lafitte Greenway that everything that happens in the Greenway is a result of a conversation with the community. And one of the programs we have is called the Ambassadors Program, which is essentially paying stipends. We have an application process, and we pay stipends to representatives of the 6 communities that are adjacent to the Greenway for them to be liaisons between our organization and the community to take information into those communities, but also take ideas from the community and feed it to us to help shape our projects and programs. Another thing that we're doing to address some of the issues around historic disinvestment and disadvantage is working with the state legislature to create a Lafitte Greenway Economic Development District around the Greenway. It's making its way through the House of Representatives right now. Once established, we think that could create a revenue source for what we call inclusive neighborhood revitalization, affordable housing, support for legacy residents, legacy businesses, bicycle pedestrian infrastructure, and stormwater management, which we haven't had a chance to touch on too much in this panel, but would just put a flag in it to say that there's significant routine flooding that happens in Greenway adjacent neighborhoods because of our antiquated pump system in New Orleans and the increasing severity of storms. And we've recently worked with the city to submit a $3 million FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant application that would do significant stormwater management inside the Greenway to pull water off of the streets from adjacent neighborhoods into the Greenway during rain events to reduce flooding in the neighborhood. So I wanted to put that flag out there too.
One of the things that I enjoyed that Kona mentioned was that trust is integral to all of this happening, and being able to convene people, bring them into spaces where they feel like it's low stakes, let's play, let's kind of like connect in that way. I think there's also got to be an acknowledgement beyond just the power structure, allowing people to build whatever community it is that they want, allowing them to go in and have the conversations that they want, and being able to be active listeners in understanding that what we may think is best for a community is not always best for a community, and understanding that the only way forward is by ceding power to our community, by understanding that, like, again, it's not going to be a top-down approach. It's all of us going together, and we can only get there together when we allow folks to have that space, that trust, and also the sustained funding to enable them to make the changes that they want to see.
I love the idea of the exercises and activities that bring various stakeholders together and play, and the idea of the, pretend market of votes and it does sort of take at least for the moment, the economic power difference away from the discussion. And that I think can be freeing to just help explore various approaches and why do you value this outcome in a particular way. So I think, again, the simple approaches can be just sheer genius in a lot of cases. So this, again, tees it up very nicely to think to the third big question that I wanted us to explore today, and that is, and Reverend Jetson, I think we've mentioned this once before too, the intense political polarization, and that we're having quite the moment in our lives here, for better or for worse, here we are. And all of you are agents of change, agents of democracy, agents of facts being brought to the table to solve real problems. So my general question is, do you think activities associated with land use planning, investments in new green infrastructure, are these mechanisms that can really become sort of a critical path, do you think, to cut through some of this intense polarization that we have now?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It happens locally. You're doing the work, right? You're hearing about all this stuff nationally, and it doesn't matter until it hits the ground here. It really doesn't matter. I mean, living in the state of Florida, we've been in the microscope for a while here. We had 2 presidential candidates, very polarizing, doing a lot of this, and it's been very challenging because we're one of those states, the Sunshine State, we want to have fun. Everybody is there to just chill, go to the beach, and then all of a sudden people are trying to pit us together, and against each other. And it's very, very challenging. So I do think that we have this opportunity through local action to bring us together, because helping people understand the benefits is really what it comes down to. What are we getting out of this? They may be talking about this nationally, but we don't see the action until a certain period of time. But when we step up and move forward with what we know is right, it just starts to unfold. And I find it really, really intriguing. We have so much in common, but people are so quick to divide us, and it's the fringes that are trying to pull us away from the center. And it really is destructive. And we're better than that. Let me tell you, it is a bit of a rope-a-dope, right? I don't know why people are trying to fool us, but we shouldn't be fooled, because together we have so many positive things to do that will benefit us all, right? It will, as long as we work together.
I leaned over and asked Mayor President if I could respond after Kona, not because I had anything pressing to say that had a sense of urgency, but I've been a nonconformist all of my life, and so this going in a row down was just driving me absolutely crazy, and so I just needed to disrupt that for just a moment for my own mental health. Because if I left this stage going one after the other, I was going to scream somewhere. But I think this is a season for courageous voices. People have to be willing to speak up, because silence is going to cost us all. And there are some things that are just true. There are some things that are right. There are some things that are best. And we have to be willing to have those arguments if necessary, and curate spaces where we can reasonably have these conversations. And we have to stop putting people's whole being inside of these political boxes. And so if you identify as this, then you have to believe, worship, you have to do everything like this in order to be a part of my clique and clan. We have to push back against these things and say, yes, I may agree with you on this and disagree with you on that. And so this is just a season for courageous voices, because if not, at the end of the day, it's going to cost us all.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to offend Reverend Jetson by going next, so
I know, it's a tough act to follow.
Go back.
No, go ahead, Tyler.
Okay. One of the things that I think, when you get an assignment from Reverend Jetson, you go with it. So one of the things that I think we forget are the canaries in the coal mines, right? So there are usually voices that are dissenting. They may be quiet to you because you are in an ivory tower, because you are not proximate, because you create lines and you don't create circles where there's not a hierarchy. And so I think one of the things we need to really focus on is how do we make sure that we are seeking out those voices, that we are asking those folks who are protesters, those folks who are saying like, hey, I see this problem here. Maybe you hadn't thought about it, that we probably could have some type of solution that could save us lots of taxpayers' money. And again, we all have a vested interest in this community. And so I think it all comes to ensuring that everyone's voice, no matter what the price tag, no matter what your perceived value that you give them because of what they look like, enabling everybody's voice to be equal. And that lived experience, again, is just so very powerful, and there's no way to negate the value of that lived experience.
Yeah, I was going to say that this question is a little awkward for me, being in that political space, but I'm going to be very frank and transparent with you. As the leader of this city, I believe that climate change is real. You know, I believe we need to do a better job of resilience. I believe that there are things that we can do for water management in a more effective way. That's why we implemented the first stormwater management plan that's ever been done. But it's unfortunate that this room is not filled with everybody who wants to see a better Baton Rouge today. Because the topics that we are talking about, they don't have a political tag on it, it's reality. Did I say I believe in science and data too? I believe in that as well. And so I believe if we're going to create a Baton Rouge where everyone can thrive and prosper, if we are going to deal with the issues around disinvestment, around land use, around drainage, all of the things that impact our quality of life here in Baton Rouge, then we have to think about planning. We have to, I heard someone say earlier, we have to have hope. We have to get out of the box of the status quo. And that is why it's so important to have partnerships like we have with CPEX and other organizations, because unfortunately, there's a label associated with government, and that label is status quo. And so while I, as the leader of the city and parish, want to break out of that status quo, we need other voices at the table to help uplift the type of Baton Rouge that we want to see moving forward. And as Raymond said, and I think Tyler also alluded to, it's going to take courageous voices. But we got to get rid of the labels of, the political labels that divide us and work towards our shared goals and a shared vision.
Great, thank you. Okay, and I think we have a few more minutes for one big question that we can all sort of think about, and then we'll turn it over to some audience questions. But my students and I at LSU like to engage in an exercise in one of the graduate classes I teach, and that is I ask them to think ahead 150 years from now. We're long gone. Everybody in the room is long gone. Historians, planners, all kinds of engineers are going to be looking back at this point in time at a place like Louisiana, at all of the hugely consequential human problems that we're dealing with, the climate-related issues, the social justice issues, the idea of reconciling investments for a safer future. And they're going to be thinking, I think we all realize this, they're going to be looking for signs of life. They're going to be looking for the sense that these people knew what they were dealing with, they knew the consequences, and they felt the urgency of the moment. So it's just a thought exercise in the last few minutes that we have for the panel part of this. What do you think 150 years from now, looking back at Louisiana, what would be some of the changes or the critical path forward to a healthy, equitable, prosperous, safe series of communities in Louisiana? What do you think are some of the changes that need to happen?
Want to go out of order? Go ahead, Jason.
I can start, if you don't mind. I think, one, they will see that we have some reverence for the traditions, for the places, for the people, for the rich histories and fabrics that are within our community. They'll see that we started to turn away from gatekeeping third spaces where people can have community, be able to find folks who maybe don't look like them and don't think like them, but being able to connect with them. And then hopefully they'll see that we started to move at the speed of trust. It's not necessarily just what we can do to make additional economic gains. That's really, really, really important, but it's never more important than the cost of our people. That is too expensive of a price tag for us. And so hopefully they look back 150 years and see that some of the division that we've seen over the years has started to dissipate because people are having those courageous conversations, because people are understanding that we are a lot stronger together than we are separated.
A wise person once told me to plan your work and work your plan. Really straightforward, right? And my hope is that we one day realize the importance of this planet, and we have this cultural paradigm shift away from waste towards resilience, where we're all stepping forward and saying, okay, the planet is number one. We have to take care of this planet. We have to. It is a paradigm shift, right? It's a big move. And we're capable. We've done so much. Done so much. So I'm really excited. I mean, I see the day where the common person elevates anyone related to the built environment, the natural environment, said these people are our saviors. We need them. Right? We need them. There's so often when our firm is involved in the project and we're brought in too late. The developer's already done something it's irreversible, right? That time is coming. We just need to talk about it. We need to be bold about it. We need to share the ideas and step up.
Any other
Well,
critical path that we can
yeah.
think about?
I can't say that I'm particularly optimistic about the 150-year future of the city of New Orleans, but I think that we're making decisions, or not, right now in the city of New Orleans that someone 150 years from now would be looking back on. I think the time is now to make the decisions that will answer that question in 150 years. And I can just tell you, I've worked on significant stormwater management federal grant applications 11 years ago that have still not been completed in New Orleans. I hope that's not the case for the ones that we're recently submitting, but if we're being honest, and to address Camille's, remarks earlier about being blunt, but also having optimism along the way that Kona is saying, it might be that some of the things that we choose to do in New Orleans today don't allow the city to endure 150 years, but that it can show what is working and what isn't for communities further away, further back from the front lines. And we're doing those things in New Orleans right now, and I'm committed to doing those. I'm optimistic. I appreciate everything y'all are saying, because y'all are giving me optimism around the work that we're doing. And I can say that we don't, if I may, it's an important question to ask what our ancestors 150 years from now would say. It's also important to know what people in New Orleans right now think about their day-to-day lives. And Kona asked this question in his presentation about what is the purpose of life? And I believe the purpose of life is connection, human connection, and connection to the land. And what's happening right now on the Lafitte Greenway is that connection. And we haven't won any landscape architecture awards yet, but the fact that it's been carved out in New Orleans, there's 500,000 people a year come to the Greenway. People think that it's been there for a lot longer than it has, only been there 9 years, because it's become beloved very, very quickly. And y'all have helped me think about something today, which is we often talk about the Greenway as a linear park and bike path. #1 most used bike path in the city, by the way. But really, it's a 3-mile-long civic plaza, because people just walk out of their houses and from their neighborhoods onto the Greenway. It's not a regional park where people drive to it and park and then do an activity. They come to wander and connect. So those human connections and those connections to the land are really happening. We've got a bunch of demonstration projects around stormwater management and rain gardens, and I'm hoping we can answer that question that you're asking in 1, 5, 10 years, whether or not the 150, irrespective of what the answer is to the 150-year question.
Yeah, I was going to break it down into 5 and 10-year plan because we need some things real soon. But I will tell you, let me start with the 150. I look back, I think 150 years from now, folks can look back in the history books and see tangible evidence of transformation that has taken place in terms of equitable paths and equitable development that has taken place, in terms of a clean environment here in our city and in our community, and the accentuation and uplifting of the lush trees and all of the assets that we have, that the Mississippi River will be seen as one of our strongest assets that we have here in our community. But for the next 5 to 10 years, I believe that we can create and we can see evidence where communities are thriving and prospering because they're creating their community. They're creating a community where they see pathways that certainly add value, whether it's the ability to walk to a park in 5 minutes. If you live in North Baton Rouge, you should be able to walk to a park. If it means having modality where you can get from North Baton Rouge to South Baton Rouge through a bus rapid transit program, these are things that I believe we should be able to see in the next 5 to 10 years.
My great fear is that, with all deference to my dear brother's framing of hope, my great fear is that 150 years from now, we will be known as the generation that squandered the opportunity. That we were the squandering generation. My sincere hope is that entities like CPEX and wonderfully brilliant spirits like Kona will prove me wrong.
Wow, thank you, thank you. And just as a wrap up on that question, my students tend to focus on the fact that their fear is that we will squander the opportunities, and that as in crises are getting more and more obvious, that we respond by getting more and more polarized and insular, and that would be, a tragic at a human scale, tragedy at a human scale. So thank you. I think, this is what we need, is to think about where we're going, obviously, and to think also about the institutions that we're all involved with now that have an important role to play, and they don't need to become brittle. And Mayor, as you mentioned, that all too often government is viewed as an agent of the status quo. And, I think the founding document people in the U.S. would be spinning in their graves if they thought that we were giving up hope at this point. So thank you all, and I think we have a few minutes to turn things now to the audience. And we encourage all of you to join in this dialogue, and anything that any of the speakers touched on that you would like to delve into a little bit deeper, please do. Okay? Okay, thank you. We have one hand. And if you'll introduce yourself or identify yourself.
Yeah. My name is Mark Martin. I'm most associated with Bike Baton Rouge, and I'm currently the chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee for Complete Streets. I know that there is a lot of positive change going on now. I know there is. But the thing that we hear about most are two things that are parallel and related to one of the things Camille said earlier. People in Louisiana vote with their feet. They're leaving. We have an ongoing conversation for the decades that I've been here about what do we do about it? How do we keep people here? It's a question that's asked over and over and over and over. At the same time, there's a group of people who go out almost annually to go to cities to see how they did it right. And they come back, and I swear to God, they say, we're not doing any of that. So how do we break that cycle? Two things. How do we break that cycle? And how do we more effectively demonstrate to the people here and elsewhere that there is positive change, that we are making those movements forward that we don't recognize as much as we should? And you've all touched on some of that today, and I thank you very much for hearing what you've had to say.
Thank you, Mark. I'll start first. We need bold leadership. We need more mayors like this. We need to be out there. Please give her a round of applause. We need bold leadership. We need that from our community, and we need that from our elected officials. We need that from anyone that is in any potential capacity to help, right? And we need action. So we got lucky in Fort Lauderdale. Virginia Beach fired their city manager for whatever reason. They didn't like what he was doing. He was too bold. He came to Fort Lauderdale and he said, all right, folks, in his strong Virginia accent, Virginia, he's like, we need to make this the best city of its size. I'm telling you, he ruffled some feathers, big time. People were upset. Bold changes. We were known for spring break. Flip that around. He's like, no, we don't want to be known for this. You guys are causing too much problems. And we created a quality environment. Billions, with a B, billions of dollars have been invested because of some simple planning and design moves, believe it or not. We designed a wave wall on the beach. It's on the cover of our Chamber of Commerce website. It's always used. People come, and they see it, and they love it. And you want to know what? This little guy from Virginia that got fired, yeah, he did it for us. He pushed us. He said, no, we can do better. And it happened. Action.
We have just 2 minutes left, so time for maybe 2 questions. Yes.
Good morning. LaShonda Pickett-Renee. I have the pleasure of working with Raymond Jetson at Metromorphosis. And something that I did not hear spoken to, and I'm interested in hearing from the panel about, is the role of entrepreneurship and enterprise in driving smart growth.
Excellent question. The role of entrepreneurship.
What have you seen? I would really, and I hate to put our guest on the spot, but in your work, what have you seen as the critical role or opportunity for entrepreneurs and even community-based efforts to contribute?
Yeah. Entrepreneurs, I mean, if you think about this country and all the invention and innovation, it was because of an entrepreneur, right? It was a small business that started and really started to spark change. And so I know for a fact in this country and around the world, entrepreneurs are the ones that really make a difference. When you're taking a chance, you're doing something bold, and you're making change. So I think it's important to create those spaces, but also to encourage entrepreneurs to just stand up, show us an idea. I mean, that's in their DNA. And so we need to foster that and really improve it.
I'll say one of the things that we need to think about as an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, is thinking about the fact that we also need to invest in communities who have ideas, make it so that it is easy to fail forward. A lot of times it is a very risky, a very costly mistake for them to try to do something because they don't have the capital, the funding, the backing. And so I think that we need to also be bolder and riskier in the way that we invest in anybody's idea, not just because you've been a startup person before, but because you have a great idea. I want you to stay here and I see the value in what you want to bring.
And we're out of time. I'm so sorry, guys. But again, thank you so much, and a huge round of applause for our wonderful panel. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. What an enlightening and intentional conversation. We're so grateful to you all. We are going to take a break, and so I wanted to just thank our sponsor session, the Office of the Mayor President, Healthy BR, and then all the summit sponsors. But we're going to take a break. If you are coming back into this room at 11:15, the session will be Getting Hot in Here, Planning for Extreme Heat. And then in the workshop theater, we'll have Experiencing Potential, Sparking Vision, and Driving Progress with Demonstration Projects. So we'll see you all at 11:15. Thank you.